Magandang araw, mga ka-Angkol. Welcome to Uncle Rock TV. Isa na namang makabuluhang discussion ang ating gagawin for today. Good day kung nasaan ka man naroon. Ang topic natin for today ay AIDS. Isa kasi itong for me, napaka-seryosong topic at masyado akong na-hook, na-fire up, naging interesado mula nung na-discover ko itong mga research materials na to. I will provide links later. But before we start, disclaimer muna. The information contained in this presentation is intended for educational purposes only. It is not substitute for professional medical advice. So, okay. Ayun, mga kaibigan. So, simulan natin sa definition muna. Lagi natin paborito, syempre, si Wikipedia. Ano nga ba ang definition ni Wikipedia about sa HIV? The human immunodeficiency viruses are two species of lentivirus that infect humans. Over time, they cause acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, a condition in which progressive failure of the immune system allows life-threatening opportunistic infections and cancers to thrive. So, ayan daw po ang cause ng AIDS, human immunodeficiency syndrome. So, again, I would like to ask for your discernment, best judgment. And this is very, for me, seryosong bagay na kailangan natin pagtuunan ng pansin. Kasi, basically, ang goal natin is malaman natin kung ano yung katotohanan for the benefit of humanity. And especially sa atin ditong mga Pilipino na wala ata masyadong nagre-research about this. So, ang layunin po natin is mabuksan ang inyong mga kaisipan sa mga katotohanan o mga bagong kaalaman na pwede nyo pong i-consider at hopefully makatulong po sa inyo at sa ating lahat. Okay? So, simulan po natin sa HIV video na ito. Ang ating discussion. Ito po si Kary Mullis, siya po yung inventor ng RT-PCR test. Let's see what he has to say about this. Kary
First
Mullis,
time I
fire
really
away.
questioned it, I was working on a project where we were measuring HIV in people's blood at this place called Specialty Laboratories in Santa Monica. I was just a consultant there, and I came in about 3 days a month, and we were working on that, and at some point we needed to re-up our grant from the NIH to work on that, and I had to write it. And so the first line of that was HIV is the probable cause of AIDS. And I wrote that, and then I said, well, I need a paper, some kind of scientific paper, to reference that statement, because when you make a statement like that, that's like a fact. You need to say, here's how come I know that, right? You put a little 1 if it's the first statement you've made, and then you put down at the bottom of the paper you have a 1, and you say, here's a paper by somebody that describes why that statement is true, right? And so I said, well, what's that? I don't know. Let me think about what is that paper? Who do I go to for that? And I looked around. I asked a couple of virologists at that company, and they said, no, you don't have to reference. I said, I have to reference that because I don't know where that came from. How do I know that? And it turned out that nobody knew it. Then, and only then, I started looking into it. I looked up a bunch of papers in science that Bob Gallo, I knew about him and had written. I figured, well, Gallo must have been the one to figure it out because he's the name I've heard associated with it. I looked at his papers, and I didn't find anything in there that actually showed me that there was a fact now in science called HIV is the cause of AIDS, or even the probable cause of AIDS, which is all I would have expected, the probable cause of AIDS. Highly probable, because they were attacking the whole problem by then as though it were certainly the cause. So I'd expect it to be highly probable, but I couldn't find anything that said it was remotely probable even. There is no reference. There is nobody who should get credit for that statement. Now that's a pretty weird situation in science, where getting credit for a discovery is the most important thing in your life. And so I asked all these people one after the other, and none of them had it. None of them. And I was getting really freaked about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody really knows. This whole thing is a big sham. It's ridiculous. How much money did we make off of HIV this year? And they could have plotted that, and it would have looked the same. You know, and they could have said it's an epidemic because we're making more and more money. That made it a plague, and the CDC needed one. The CDC hadn't had a good plague since polio. Their funding was probably going to be cut back if they didn't come up with one. The guy that was the head of the CDC, in fact, wrote memos that have been obtained, you know, that where he describes this as hot stuff. You know, those guys have got an agenda, which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way. The scientists are, like you say, they are considered the final arbiters of what's good for the planet or what's bad for the planet. And they haven't got the slightest idea. Instead of wearing white robes, they wear white lab coats, you know. Instead of bringing you the word of God, they bring you the word of the EPA. I was right at the edge of my faith in the system, but I thought Montagnier will know why he thinks HIV causes it, and he'll tell me. He'll say, because of this study, you know, but he didn't have that. None of those guys have that, and that's why they're so weird, you know. That's why they don't want dissent. They don't want people like me walking up and asking them those kind of questions, and they're willing to go to great lengths to prevent that. They're out on a limb. I wouldn't want to be there with them. Where if somebody gets mad at you for asking him a question in a scientific meeting, or says, we're never going to have Kary Mullis at the European Union of whatever kind of scientists, or they put it in Nature, because he came in there and had the audacity to tell people that it might not be that bad to have sex. That AIDS might not be something you get from sex. That I don't see any evidence for it, is all I said. I don't see any evidence for it. What? You can't tell young people that.
This is from Spin, July 1994, by Celia Farber. When ABC's Nightline approached...
Ayun, mga kaibigan. So, ayun si Kary Mullis. Meron pa akong isang ipi-play na video mamaya. Ito na, actually, ito na siya. Yun. Kary Mullis, siya po yung inventor ng RT-PCR test. That was the time that talagang bad trip na siya kay Robert Gallo, and especially kay Fauci, kasi wala ngang evidence. Kasi sabi nga niya, nami-misinterpret. I'll provide all the links later, guys. Hindi ako magiging madamot sa mga links, andyan lahat para po. Kasi hindi kaya ng isang ganito ka-exig video para maihatid sa inyo kung ano yung mga dapat nyo pong malaman. This is very, very important. Kung meron po kayong mga kamag-anak na may AIDS, let them know about this. Share nyo yung video natin. And lahat ng andyan po, kailangan nyo malaman andyan. Hindi po kaya natin discuss lahat yan dito. So, ayun. Ito nga yun, si Kary Mullis, bad trip na siya. Kasi nami-misinterpret yung result na nakuha sa invention niya, which is RT-PCR test. The same tool that we are using to diagnose, hindi ko pwede sabihin, yung covered. So, yun. Kayo na po ang bahala. Use your discernment, best judgment. Baka po may mabuksang mga bagong idea sa inyo na maghatid sa inyo sa tamang impormasyon. Yun po yung goal natin dito. Hindi po tayo andito para manira ng industry, ng mga professionals, but ang gusto natin dito is malaman natin ang katotohanan kasi we deserve to know what is the truth. So, fair enough? So, mayroon pa ako isang video na gustong i-play. Let's see. Presentation din siya about AIDS.
They've got to hold on to HIV. Why? To hold on to their funding.
It's a disgrace for any other disease. With this much disagreement about the cause, we would by now have a balanced portfolio.
They're dispersing AZT to 200,000 Americans in the name of a hypothesis that stands unproven, a drug that is the most toxic drug that has ever been licensed for long-term consumption in the free world.
How the United States gave AIDS to the world.
Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, known best by its acronym, 4 letters we've been told to fear. The AIDS crisis is very real. Its dark form casts a shadow over the statistics of the dead and dying. Virtually non-existent in 1980, by 1995, AIDS had afflicted over 1.5 million lives globally, 500,000 in the United States alone. AIDS has become the leading singular cause of death in U.S. males between the ages of 25 and 44. It's been called the plague of this century and portrayed like some medieval nightmare. It knows no pity and respects no limits. We've been told that it can strike anyone and everyone is at risk. For over 15 years now, AIDS has terrorized social America, and still there is no cure. What causes AIDS? We've been told that AIDS is caused by this tiny retrovirus. Its name is HIV, and virtually everyone who is infected with it is expected to develop any one of 30 different diseases, all of which ultimately result in death. To stop HIV and AIDS, the U.S. government has enacted emergency measures, spent $40 billion, and mobilized the greatest scientific research effort in the history of man. The war against AIDS has spent more money and utilized more scientific talent than it took to land on the moon. All this to fight a microscopic enemy, and still there are no certain results. After 15 years, the public asks, why? There is a good explanation as to why the war against AIDS has been a total failure. We've spent all our time and money trying to stop this virus, HIV, and as many top research scientists have tried to point out, this virus is not the cause of AIDS. For over 10 years, this argument against HIV has been dismissed by the government, suppressed in the media, and disputed by the political economic powers of the AIDS industry. Yet, since 1987, a growing group of scientists continue to make this unnerving allegation. AIDS research has not failed because it never found a cure. AIDS research has failed because it never found the cause. Is this virus, HIV, really the cause of AIDS? If it isn't, why are we being told this?
The virus that causes AIDS.
The virus that causes AIDS.
The AIDS virus.
HIV, the virus that causes AIDS.
The public has been very supportive, yet with over 100,000 research papers published on HIV and AIDS, there is still no direct proof HIV causes immune deficiency. The entire government-funded approach to fighting AIDS is based on this unproven hypothesis hanging from a frayed thread, and with the weight of mounting evidence against it, this hypothesis is in serious trouble. In fact, the entire international effort to stop AIDS has all its eggs in one beaker. Time, money, treatment, and millions of human lives hang in the balance. If HIV is not the cause of AIDS, millions of people have been told that they're going to die for no reason at all, and hundreds of thousands have been treated with permanently impairing drugs, some of which could cause AIDS themselves. If HIV does not cause AIDS, how many lives have been lost to a misdiagnosis, and how many more will die in the future? In the next few minutes, we will present 10 scientific arguments that explain why HIV does not cause AIDS, what the causes could be, and why treatments with dangerous drugs like AZT are unnecessary and cause the very disease they're supposed to prevent. We will also explain to you why this information has been kept back from the public awareness, and why the U.S. Department of Health, the pharmaceutical industry, and AIDS activist organizations have perpetrated this myth. As citizens, taxpayers, and people who also someday could be at the mercy of a misguided program like this, we hope you will see the importance of this issue. Is HIV the cause of AIDS? If not, as Neville Hodgkinson of the London Sunday Times put it, then we will have witnessed the greatest medical scientific blunder of the 20th century. today, nearly everyone has been affected by AIDS. Whether it's a friend or a lover, a business acquaintance, or even a perfect stranger, AIDS has had an impact on our entire culture. The dread hangs silently over society, and there's little hope on the horizon. It's time we ask ourselves some serious questions. Could we be on the wrong track with HIV? Have we jumped to conclusions that will only lead to a dead end? Are we willing to accept the truth, even if it means that our whole campaign against AIDS has been in vain? To understand just how HIV became the target of this international...
Ayan, mga kaibigan. So, yes, actually sinabi din sa video na sana po katulad din po ninyo ako na nakikita nyo po yung halaga na kailangan po nating awareness campaign po itong ginagawa natin. Kailangan po malaman ng maraming Pilipino ang ganitong mga issue dahil para po kasi marami po, actually meron ako gusto ipakita sa inyo dito. Merong page dito sa Philippines na pangalan ay HASH, HIV and AIDS Support House, na merong over 4,734 followers. And meron din po akong mga kilala na na-diagnose nito. Which is, ayaw ko naman din silang pakialaman sa mga gusto nilang decision. Ayaw ko makialam, but hopefully, nagpa-follow sila sa akin and anyway, ma-realize nila. Ang totoo, mahirap kasi magpilit ng tao na, alam mo yun, nakaiba yung pinaniwalaan. Baka nga mali tayo, we never know. Use your best judgment, napakahalaga po nito. Gusto ko lang, allegedly, according sa video, ang kinamamatay ng mga tao is not the disease, kasi wala nga po. According kay Karen Wallace, hindi po na-isolate ang HIV virus and walang scientific paper. Actually, sa latter part, ito yung same na sinabi ni Karen Wallace kanina is walang scientific paper. Nandaya po si Robert Gallo, mga last minute alteration na ginawa niya is ginaya niya, kinopya niya lang, pinirate niya yung LAV virus. Ang una palang pangalan nito is HTLV3. Tapos since nga nagkaroon ng problema na pinirate lang pala ni Robert Gallo yon, ang ginawa is ni-rename siya to HIV. So, yun na nga, yung human immunodeficiency syndrome. So, or human immunodeficiency virus. So, use your best judgment. Napaka-importante po nito. Lahat po ng links ay ilalagay ko. So, yun nga po. Dahil wala nga po talaga. Meaning, para sa wala lahat ng kampanya ng buong mundo about sa sakit na to. And sabi sa video kanina na ang kinamatay, allegedly, ng mga tao or nag-cause ng sakit is the cure itself. Very strong statement to make, but yun po yung sinabi sa video. Hindi po yun galing sa akin. I'm just a researcher and I would like to open your minds. I'm asking for your open-mindedness para po makatulong din tayo sa iba and malaman natin kung ano ba. Use your best judgment nga po, sabi ko, diba? Para malaman natin kung ano nga po yung katotohanan. And I'll provide all the links sa baba po. Sana po makatulong tong video na to. Please share. I-share nyo po sa mga taong sa tingin nyo makakapag-benefit sa mga ganitong klase ng video research na ginagawa natin. So again, doon na po muna lahat ng links. Huwag po kayo mag-alala. Ilalagay ko po. Panoorin nyo lahat kasi aabutin ng isang buong araw kung i-research natin lahat. Doon po. Sana po nakatulong itong video na to. Kung kinakailangan natin gumawa ng part 2, why not? Subscribe. Magkita-kita po tayo ulit dito sa Uncle Rock TV. Magandang araw.